Welcome to Lecture 22 in the series of modules on statistical quality assurance and statistical process improvement. We're to the point in this series of talking about simple data collection. That is, we've structured these modules around the 6-step process-oriented quality assurance cycle from Vardeman and Jobe, and we've talked about steps 1 and 2, and now are to the point of talking about step 3 and tools that are associated with step 3. In this particular lecture, we're going to talk about some simple quality assurance data collection principles. So we're at step 3 in this 6-step quality assurance cycle. We need to understand that data simply don't just appear on a piece of paper or in a database. They're collected either by humans or by systems that humans build, and that if we're going to make use of data, they need to be useful, and how useful they are, there are not only technical issues to consider, but there are qualitative human issues to consider. So here are a few short statements, guidelines about quality assurance and engineering data collection. In the first place, if one is going to collect useful data, one needs operational definitions of the quantities upon which data are to be gathered. That is, I need to know if I'm going to do a visual inspection of a windshield, looking for defects on a piece of plate glass. I need an operational definition of what a defect is. How big's it got? How big does an imperfection have to be before it's a defect? Does it matter where the imperfection is located, and so on? If one's going to use measurement equipment, the measurement equipment needs to be stable, it needs to be well calibrated, it needs to be properly precise. Technicians that are going to use measurement equipment, going to collect data, need to be properly trained in using measurement equipment, be properly trained in operational definitions of the measurands of things that they're trying to understand. The second point is that a small or moderate amount of data that is carefully collected and immediately used will generally be far more useful than a huge amount of data that's simply archived away in a database and is not particularly carefully collected, is not documented, is never used. A third point is that it's the absolute size of a sample and the basic process or population variability associated with the measurands those are the things that determine information content of a sample. Rules of thumb like I'll take a 30% sample or I'll take a 10% sample are really very uninformed rules. Sometimes 10% is not enough. Sometimes a 10% sample is way more than is needed. It's the absolute size. One of the things that should grow out of a introduction to elementary statistics is an understanding of this point, but it's a point that gets forgotten as people get away from basic statistics. Another point is that the closer the data are taken in time and space to an operation that they're meant to reflect, the better. it's very difficult to, very much after the fact and separated in time, say at the end of a production line, to do inspection and then try to track back to a particular operation that perhaps was responsible for making items non-conforming. The ideal is probably that data collection is done by, or at least directed by, well-trained process workers on the spot at operations that are being investigated or monitored. Routine data collection needs to be as convenient as possible, and however it's done, it's probably best that data are immediately available and portrayed in a form that makes them immediately useful, understandable. It really typically does no good if data are collected and then are carried away and later entered into a database or put on a form. The point is to get data used, not to make great fancy looking displays right away. There is the matter of documentation. One needs to be careful to keep track of conditions surrounding data collection. If I don't know what raw material lot was involved, what operator was involved, what machine was involved, it's very unlikely that in the end I'm going to be able to go back and make useful adjustments to what's going on the basis of collected data. Finally, one must take into account psychology and politics when one is thinking about making data collection assignments. If you ask me to collect data and data that I collect have the potential, or I perceive that they have the potential to harm me, you're going to have difficulty getting me to be forthright in how those data are reported. One needs to understand that what's needed is a faithful representation of a situation rather than quote unquote good numbers, and one has to believe that good numbers will not be used in ways that are personally detrimental to the people doing the data collection.